Hey, it's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another great chat open source platform option for you. So I've recently talked about RocketChat, which is a great open source project for chat and team collaboration and video communication and audio communication. It's really an amazing product, and it competes well with Slack. It's got active development, which makes it even better, and it's been out there for several years. These guys have put this out in places that have 10,000 plus users with success, so that should tell you where that product sits from a team size and organization size perspective today. The second video that I did is about a product called MAttermost, also open source, a great chat platform. I did a video on it a few years back, and since then, after I did this latest video, I realized they have put in a lot of effort and a ton of new features and functionality. It has active development as well. It's a really cool platform. It's got a lot of capability and a lot of promise, so definitely one you should check out if you haven't already done that. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the platform called Zulip. It's Z-U-L-I-P. It's another chat platform. It's got some pretty cool features in it, and we'll go through those. It's going to take a little bit of different setup than I've done in the past. I am going to use a one-click install from DigitalOcean. I'll go through that again. DigitalOcean is really a great VPS provider. Their virtual private servers are really great. They run on solid-state drives, so even though it seems like a small server, it actually has a lot of power behind it, and you get a lot out of it. And I just want to kind of show you again how to go through that process to get that set up. I'll have a link down in the description on how to get set up with DigitalOcean. If you want to get set up through the link, you'll get $50 of credit for the first 30 days of use. So that's basically this $10 container that I'm going to use for the entire month. And you could set up several others to try out some other software that you might be interested in at the same time. I highly recommend that you click on that and get an account going with DigitalOcean if you don't already have one today. The other setup that we're going to do today is through GoDaddy. So I use GoDaddy to host my domains. I also use Hover, another great website, but GoDaddy is one of the ones that's easiest for me just to jump in and make some quick changes and jump right back out of. Hover is not difficult. Don't misunderstand me at all. I've just been with GoDaddy for so long that I haven't moved everything over to Hover yet. I really like Hover. I like the layout. I like the way that they do things. It's pretty clean. GoDaddy is really easy to use, but it's a little bit, in my opinion, junked up on the user interface sometimes. But honestly, it's super simple to get in and use it no matter what. So I've got it open here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a minute after we create the server, but we'll go through some DNS management. So DNS is domain name server management. The DNS management lets you tell the internet how to find your server. So DNS servers are across the internet, and they say www.whatevername.com belongs to this IP address. So if you don't know what an IP address is, it's this thing right here. So sometimes you'll see that pop up in your address bar on the browser. It shouldn't. It should show you the nice name. So really it just says this nice name equals this IP. This is actually how things get found on the internet. So everything on the internet has an address like this, or what they now call an IPv6 address, which is even uglier than this one. But this would be really hard to remember. If you think it's hard to remember phone numbers today, imagine if you had to remember a number like this for every website that you enjoyed. So they use simple names that are easier to remember, like GoDaddy or DigitalOcean or Fixit Del Rio or YouTube.com. Finally, my third tab here is the space that we're going to use to actually go to our Zulip install when it's ready. So let's get on with this. I'm going to go back here to DigitalOcean. The first thing you do once you have the account set up is go into Create and Droplet. So the Droplet is the server that you're going to create. I'm going to stay on Ubuntu. Feel free to pick any distro that you're more comfortable with, but I'm going to stay with Ubuntu for now. And then I'm going to go over here to the Marketplace. And I'm just going to go down to the bottom so you can see all of the different types of servers. And I've gone through some of these before. There's just tons in here, and we'll go through a lot of these over time. But I'm going to go down here to the bottom, and I'm going to find Zulip. Once you click on Zulip, you just keep scrolling down. So now again, you can click a standard or a more advanced type of server. I'm just going to stay with standard. I don't need something special or outrageous for this particular demo. You might check these out and see what they say. Before we move on, I do want to talk about this. If you're not sure what some of these are, you can click on this little details link. So I like to right click, open it up in a new tab, and then it'll open up and load the information about this type of server, so you can see what this server does, what the software is that's included or needing to be installed. And then you can also see the version information and a little bit more information. So in this case, like getting started after your deployment. This is a really important section that we'll want to know about. So it's important to click on those details sometimes just to make sure whenever there's information like this that you have that information as you move forward. Then there's some API creation information as well for this Zulip server. So we'll leave that open. I'm going to go back over to my DigitalOcean and I'm going to scroll on down. So again, they always default you to the $40 a month server. Just hit the little left arrow and you can come over here and pick 10. You can pick 5 if you think that it'll run on that. I think they're pretty good about telling you like, hey, the server you picked won't run what you're trying to run. But I'm gonna leave it on 10 so that we have the right resources that I'm looking for. As you scoot down, if you're doing this for production, again, enabling backups is a really smart thing. It doesn't cost very much per month, and it's totally worth your time if you're thinking about doing this as a production site. I'm not, so I'm going to leave it turned off. At block storage, again, if you're going to have a lot of media that's being uploaded, you might want to add block storage and attach that. We'll talk about that later, but it is there, and if you know what you're doing, it's not hard to set up, so it's worth looking at. You can pick the server in a location that's closest to you geographically to make latency a little bit less. So I'm just going to leave it on New York. I could pick New York, I could pick San Francisco, I could probably pick Toronto, Canada. I'm just in a place where I'm kind of between all of those and it doesn't really matter. So Amsterdam, France, England, those are not going to work for me, but these three here could totally work. So as you move down, you get to some additional things. So I also have SSH keys set up. So I've done the password in the past. I'm going to do the SSH key this time and kind of let you see what that looks like. When I get ready to pick my SSH key, I just move down here and you can see like here's my public key. So I'm going to just click on that and check it. Now you can add new SSH keys right here. You can see I've got quite a few already added. I'm just going to use this one for this machine that I'm on. Finally, you just give this a name. So I know what I'm going to call this in my domain name setup in a minute. So I'm going to call it mychat.routemehome.org. So I put my domain name in there. It's nothing special. This is really just a tag inside of DigitalOcean, but it makes it easy to find. Finally, you do have actual tags. So if you're hosting a lot of DigitalOcean servers for clients, you could give a client name as a tag and make it a lot easier to filter through those servers when you have to jump on and do some work inside of the DigitalOcean user interface. I don't need any of that, so I'm just going to go down here and click on Create Droplet. The droplet creation process is really fast. You can see it's already speeding through. It usually takes about a minute or less. It initializes an image that's been already created and set up. I'll talk about some of the things that you get out of this one-click install and then some of the things that are a little bit of a hindrance sometimes as we go through this as well. Okay, my DigitalOcean server has been spun up. This is the IP address that I want to point my domain name at. So I'm just going to copy this. They just have a really handy copy button right here. I'm going to go back into my GoDaddy system here for my DNS management. So what I want to add is what they call an A record. So you'll see a few things over here that have an A in front of them. So this @ for the A record is one that I entered. So this would take me to my regular routemehome.org server. It doesn't run a web page though, so nothing would resolve if I went here. But this is my A record for that. Here I've got a mesh server that goes to a certain IP address. So mesh.routemehome.org would go to this IP address. That server's not running that right now, so it wouldn't do me any good, but it's there if I decide to spin it up. So what I need to do is add a new A record. So we click on Add and we can move down here to our form. We're going to select A. I'm going to type in the host again. So this is what is the name. So it's just the first part before the routemehome.org. So in this case I said mychat. Now I'm just going to paste in the IP address that it should point to. And then here this is time to live. So it says 1 hour. It does take time for all of the DNS servers on the internet to actually update. I'm going to set this to a half hour. I don't know if it really would be able to get done in a half hour, but you can change it to that, so I do. I've seen the option for 5 minutes in the past. Again, it takes up to 48 hours for all the DNS servers of the internet to actually update, so it could take a little bit longer than what you see here for those servers to update and for that domain name to point to the right server. But I'm going to click on Save. I can go up here and just double check. Here it is, mychat, and it's got the IP address that I want, so it should be live here in just a little bit. So we'll let that work. Now I've got the IP address, so I'm just going to open up a terminal window. I'm going to bring that right into here, and I'm going to type in SSH root. So it always sets you up as root with DigitalOcean. You want to make sure that the system gets set up not as root if you're putting it as production. So you want to create a non-root user and then set up whatever software you want to run. That's the more ideal way to do things. So I'm going to put in the mychat.routemehome.org, and I want to see if it'll take me to that correct location. I had this set up for a different server earlier that I have destroyed on DigitalOcean. So again, if you, like for these test servers, I set them up, run them for a day, run them for a couple of hours, and then I destroy them. And DigitalOcean only charges me for the time that I had that server running. So I'll have to see if this is trying to point at the old IP address still, or if it's had time to at least update the DNS servers that I hit and point me to the new one. So we're going to hit enter. It's asking me if I want to accept this server, which is a good sign. That means that I've not tried to go to this server with SSH in the past. So I'm going to type in yes, and it's going to try to authenticate me. So it authenticates me, and it comes up with a message here. So this is an important thing, so you want to read this, right? So you need an email address for support and error emails, like me@example.com or whatever you want, whatever your email address is. You can pick the email address later, but you also need a host name. So that's why we set up that host name of mychat.routemehome.org. So that's what it's telling you here on the second part. You also need a host name for your Zulip server. The DNS needs to be configured to point to the IP address of the server. And then it says Control-C to exit setup for now. So if you don't want to continue with setup because you haven't done these things, it's telling you hit Control-C so you don't continue. Otherwise you press enter to continue. Well, we're working because I was able to SSH into this using mychat.routemehome.org, so I'm ready to continue. So it says email address for support, so I'll just put in brian@fixitdelrio.com. And then now it wants my domain name, so mychat.routemehome.org. And you want to double check your spelling on these things. You want to make sure that you're not giving bad spellings, because bad spellings are not a good thing on the internet. If you type something incorrectly, you'll end up on sites that you really didn't want to go to in a lot of cases. So it's going to run some scripts. It's going to try to set up the system, and I think it hit an error pretty much right away, but let's find out. It did. So the big thing that happens with these Ubuntu servers, don't let this type of error discourage you. What this is telling you is that it hit a depackaged front-end lock. So Ubuntu uses a apt service to install packages, and they're called dpackage, DPKG. What's happening is the Ubuntu server is trying to update itself in the background. So I installed this on a server that was set from an image. That image could have been made 6 months ago, could have been made 2 years ago, well, could have been made a year ago. It's an 1804 image. So that's April of 2018. What happens is that image gets made and it's never updated after that. So what's going on is the Ubuntu server wants to update that image for me. So it's running the updates in the background. And what happens when it's doing that is it's using the updater, and this script that's trying to run is trying to use the updater, and they're fighting. Well, this wins because it was already running, so it has a lock on that updater, and the script can't actually get it. So the script got kind of stopped. Had I given this time to finish updating, the script would have run through probably just fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reboot the server. It's going to throw me out of the server. It'll take about 15 seconds to completely reboot this server. 1, it's Linux, so it's fast no matter what. 2, it's running on SSDs, so it's fast because of that. 3, it's a virtual server, so it's actually virtual hardware and virtual software that's running, so it's going to be even faster. So it only takes 15 seconds to reboot this server. It doesn't take any time at all. Okay, the server rebooted. It took about a minute. I think it was trying to finish up the updates before it finished the reboot. Normally it takes about 15 seconds for that reboot to happen. So what I've got is I'm back at the terminal. Now I did not get to run through my script. It's telling me here's some places where I can get some information about Zulip, but I actually need to run that setup script. So what I need to do is just do an ls. That's going to show me everything in the directory. And here you can see we've got the Zulip server folder here, and this is the GZ, the zip file. So this folder was unzipped from this file automatically when I did the install. So I'm going to cd Zulip and hit tab. So if you hit tab when you're typing in the bash terminal, it just auto completes if it can find a unique value. I'm going to hit ls, and I'll see all of the files inside of this server. So I've got a script that I looked up. I'm going to highlight that and copy it. I'm going to bring it over. And this is the script that I want to run from inside the Zulip server. So basically there's a script here that we need to run called install, and we've got to feed it some parameters. So first thing I'm going to do is backspace out of here and give it the host name. So that's mychat.routemehome.org. I'm going to go back and I'm going to give it my email again. I'm going to double check and make sure everything looks really good. Now one thing to note is that the certbot here is going to try and get a Let's Encrypt certificate. That's great because Let's Encrypt gives you CA certificates that say this is a valid site. The last time I did this, it had a problem because when the server gets set up, it sets up self-signed certificates. That creates an issue because certbot tries to go to port 80 and port 80 gets forwarded to 443 before certbot can finish, and it doesn't get it done. I'm going to try this again. We'll see if it works. So we have the command set. I'm going to hit enter and we're going to watch it run through the script here. So if you get this prompt, just leave it on the selection that's there, hit tab to get to the OK button, and then press enter. You may get the prompt a second time and have to do the same action. Just hit tab, press enter, and the install will continue. When it comes to this prompt, this is Let's Encrypt asking you for some information before it gives you the cert. So first you have to agree to their terms of service, so you hit A. And it tells me the installation failed because it couldn't get the cert that it's looking for. And again, that's the reason that I was giving you earlier. Port 80 is getting forwarded to 443 before the certbot can finish. You can go and look at what the actual error is in a log, and they tell you where that log is at. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rerun the command. I'm going to go over here and take out the certbot part, and it's going to use the self-signed certificates, which is fine for this demo. Basically, you just need to get rid of the self-signed certificates and make sure that it's not doing the forwarding. That's done through an Nginx proxy. So we can go through that stuff in the future, or if you leave me a comment saying, hey, you'd like to know how to do that, let me know and I'm happy to go through it. It's really just changing up something on one of the Nginx configurations. So I'm going to hit enter to run this again without the certbot. Alright, the install finished, and you get this little setup link. So you click on this link, you can hold control and click on it to actually open it up on the browser. You can highlight it, copy and paste it into the browser, just however you want. This is a one-time use link that lets you go in and set up the site so that you're the admin of the site. So I'm going to hit control, click on the link, and you'll see it comes up and it says enter my email address. This is pretty easy. And then I'm going to hit create organization. So you give it an organization name, a little bit of information, and then you just sign up basically. So this is easy. We're going to call this Fix It Del Rio, and you can see I type that sometimes. It's going to jump me all the way down here to the full name. I'm just going to put Brian G. Password. Strong passwords are always important. And we're in. So right off the bat, it gives us this little red message that says you've not set up your email configuration yet. Well, obviously because we just set up the site. But you can click here to get more information on how to configure the email. Zulip is a little bit different from the other two chat platforms that I've shown you. It's similar, it uses different terminology, it's set up a little bit different, but it's very interesting. So we'll go through this in pretty good detail and see what all we see that's different. First, they don't call them channels, they call them streams. And they'll tell you a little bit about different things. So as you go through, there's little bits of hint pop-ups. So I'm going to click on got it. And then you see over here this little hint pops up. So if I click, it gives me a little bit of information. And it's just telling you that messages sent in a stream are seen by anyone. So we can hit OK. Now we click in the stream and it gives us a little bit more information, so we click on that. It says every message has a topic. So topics are basically sub-channels. They say that no other system has this, and for Slack-like systems, that's true. Slack does not have sub-channels. RocketChat does not have sub-channels. MAttermost also does not have sub-channels. They just have channels. You create a lot of channels and you do different things for those channels. Teams, the Microsoft Teams application, does have the concept of sub-channels, or what they're calling topics. So in Teams, you set up a channel, which is kind of a grouping of subtopics. So for instance, if you're a development team, you might have development general, development support, development assist, development web, and each of those is a topic that you post specific things in about. It's a nice way to organize the information, so Zulip is kind of on the right track in my opinion with that. I really like that. The channel setup without subchannels is a little bit harder to filter through, in my opinion, with the Slack-like systems, but I do like this. It's pretty nice. So you click on Got It and it'll go away. As you click in a stream up here at the top, you can see that it's actually kind of filtering where the search filtering would be. So if I click on a different stream or a different topic inside this channel, yeah, so if we click on General here, we can see some different topic information. You can see there's Welcome. Then if we click on Announce, of course, you can see there's also Welcome here. There's also a private channel, or a private stream in this case, with a topic. So you click on something inside the topic to basically start a thread. So now I can type by default. When you hit enter in Zulip, it goes to the new line. So if I go back and I hit Control Enter, it actually sends the message. I think you can probably change that in the settings, so we'll look for that here in just a minute. So here it's actually telling us go to settings to see some of the information, so we can say got it, and we can click on the gear, and there's lots of options just like on the other systems for the admin user. So I'm going to click on settings, and you'll see there's two different tabs here. So if I go back out of this, and over here there is manage organization, it opens up, it just comes over to this tab first. You can switch back to settings. So both of those options in the menu actually bring you to the same window. It's just tabbed. So as we go through the settings, there's user settings, which are your settings for your user, and you can put in avatar, you can put in different information and change your password. There's display settings. So there's a night mode, which I like. I like the darker modes, especially I work in the daytime. When you work on computers all day, the dark mode really helps go easier on your eyes, in my opinion. Some people like the light mode, and there's days where I want the light mode, so it's nice to have the option to switch that. You can show the user list on the left sidebar if you want to. Counts for your favorited messages or starred messages. You can change time settings to be 24-hour. You can change your time zone. This is the correct zone for me, so I'll leave it as it is. And then you have emoji settings down here at the bottom. So notifications, all of these systems we've seen have notification settings, so you can kind of go through these and see what your different notification settings are and set those up to use the way that you prefer it. So you can also set up bots to do certain things. Bots are pretty cool. They can react to certain types of messages that you put into a stream or a topic or in the other systems in a channel. So alert words, so if you're kind of tracking certain topics or certain words, you might want to watch for those types of words. So if you're someone in product strategy, you might want to type in product strategy here, or product management, or product analysis, those kind of things. And if somebody types that in, or types in a, prod STRAT, maybe it's a shortened version, things that are pretty common on your team, then the system will let you know, like, hey, somebody actually used this term in a stream topic just now. You might want to look at it just to see if you need to help out or jump in. Uploaded files. So if you upload files, you can see what those files are, and you can manage those files from here. And finally, muted topics. So sometimes you get involved in a topic and you're just really not interested in it, or it has nothing to do with you, but it's constantly like spamming you with notifications. You can actually mute that topic, and then you can see those muted topics because at some point it might become relevant to you where you need to unmute it. So this is where you would manage that. If we go to the organizational settings, you can see here the organizational profile, the name of the organization, a description, maybe a logo picture of some kind can go here. They call it the avatar. Of course, you can change the organizational logo to not be Zulip. You can make it your own. And then night mode organizational logo if your graphics team has made one or you've made one. And then of course you can deactivate the organization if you need to. So if you're setting this up for multiple organizations as a multi-tenant type system, you can deactivate an organization. Custom emoji for the organizations. I've talked about custom emoji for the last two. I'll say it again. Be very careful when you allow custom emoji. Be open to it, but just let people know, like, be smart about the things that you upload, because sometimes you upload something thinking it's funny, but it's really offensive, or sometimes you upload something without thinking at all and it's offensive, and you just want to be careful with that and make sure that the users are careful about that as well. So user groups, you can create different user groups inside of the system. So if you have a marketing team and a product strategy team and a development team and a support team, you can create those groups inside the system, and then I think you can address messages to groups in that way. Authentication methods. So right now email is the only authentication method and it's checked. It's not going to work until we configure the email setup, but it is here. Finally, users. So if you need a list of users, you'll see them here. I'm the only user in the system, so I'm the only one showing up. You can see deactivated users, so if you've turned anyone off so that they can't use the system, that's where they would be. Again, we come back to bots, so you can have bots that are set up for the organization and the system here. Default streams, so there's a couple of default streams that get set up automatically within a new organization. You can change that to not be these streams, or you can change it to have certain streams and topics. It's kind of nice to set that up because these may not really be the best ones to have as a default for users. This is great for us as a new user and an admin to see what's capable, but knocking it down to one, like announcements or general, is probably good. Here on Linkifiers, if you use something like GitLab or GitHub or Jira and you have task IDs that you want to link to inside of the system, you can use regular expressions to set those up so that if you type in, you know, JI-T-120 for your Jira ticket, the system knows that to link that to your Jira system, and that it knows to link that to that specific task in your Jira system. So this is a pretty cool feature. It's something that would take a little bit of work to get it down and get it set up right, but pretty nice feature. You can also add custom profile fields. So if the profile fields that they have now for your users aren't enough, or you want a little bit more information about each one of them to be out there on their profile, you can add that here, which is another nice feature. And then invitations. Again, once you set up the email system, you can set up custom invitations and you can see the invitations that have gone out to people. So that's it for settings. I'm not really going to change into the settings right now. So I want to show see how to configure email. So it's going to open in a new tab and it's going to tell you where to go change this actually inside the system. So the system's telling you that you need to set up the SMTP account in order for Zulip to send email. And that gets done through this file right here, which is /etc/zulip/settings.py. So this is a place where you would go and edit this file actually on the server. So here is where you would do that. So we'll type in cd to go back. We're set up as root. If you're not set up as a root user, when you set up the system, you'll have to do this as a super user. So you do sudo and then /etc/zulip/settings.py. And actually not just sudo, but you have to give it a text editor that you want to use to actually edit the file. So I'm going to use Nano. And you see here it opens up and there's a lot of information here that we need to go through, but there should be a mail settings down here that we can change. So here we can see the top of the outgoing email SMTP settings. It's got some instructions here. So here you would uncomment these lines. You would take out the email host comment here so that it actually becomes enabled. You would need to set this up. So you can set this up with any email SMTP capabilities. If you have your own email server, that's probably better. However, if you're using Gmail, just be aware that Gmail is a little bit tricky to set up. Google's trying to protect people from getting spammed through Gmail, so you want to be careful about that. You have to go into Google Security and actually enable the features for a third-party application like this to use Gmail to send that mail. It's a little hard to set up sometimes, so I really recommend using a different email system if you can find one. Things like Mailgun or just running your own email server make it a lot easier. You would just take out the same thing here and put in the username for your email. Here you want to put in your email password. So you want to, this is in a configuration file, you just want to be careful, make sure nobody's looking over your shoulder when you type this in. And then if your email uses TLS, which today everything should use TLS. If you don't have email using TLS, you need to switch email or upgrade your email system. But you want to turn this on to set it to true, and then you want to set that port to be the correct TLS port if possible. Your system might use a different port for TLS. That's okay. Just make sure you know what that port is and you set it here. So once you're done making your changes, you hit Control O. You would hit enter to save the file. I'm not going to do that because I made changes and I haven't filled out the data that I should right now for this particular purpose. So I'm going to just cancel out of that by hitting Control C. Now I'm going to hit Control X, and it's going to ask me, do I want to save? And I'm going to say no, so it'll discard my changes, which is what I want because I don't want to mess up my server. Alright, I'm going to go back into the server and we'll look at a little bit of the information and setup that we have available here. So here at the stream level, we see this little gear icon. So gears always mean settings. So we're going to click onto it and you'll see that you have the list of streams that you have available. You can manage these streams from here, so you can turn them on and off. You can create new streams. It's a useful page to know about. So I'm going to close that out. Here on the search, you can actually search for a stream. So you can open and close that. There we go. There's our message. There's our topic. People can see it. They can go and look at it and see what they need to see. If they need to take action, they can reply to it by, of course, clicking in the topic area. So it's an interesting way to do communication. I'm not super sold on it. The requirement for having email set up isn't really my favorite thing. So I would definitely have to say that I prefer RocketChat and MAttermost over Zulip today. I'll check back with Zulip in a year or so and see how it's going. Maybe it'll have grown a little bit. Thank you for joining me. I'm looking forward to doing some more great stuff on open source software for you. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you got a lot out of it. If I'm not covering something you're interested in, please let me know. Just leave a comment, hit the like button. Also, please subscribe to the channel so you can see more topics that are coming up. I'm trying to get better at this and I want to improve, so leave me some constructive criticism if you need to, and I'll do my best to make it better. Thanks.